Oh, welcome to a study in sleep deprivation. I am, to the best of my knowledge, Forrest Poston, which means this is WVU Football Going Deep, the channel for fans who like to think as well as jeer. Reminder, actually, okay, there we go. Okay. Um, Reminder that trash talk and insults do not fly on this channel, and they can get you banned if if they persist or if they are too far over the top to begin with. Uh, any subject pretty much is available for questions if anybody out there wants to ask. Hey, we have two people watching. That is good. And yes, I do know the thumbnail is back from Monday. Uh, if you checked the title at one point or the description, we lost our internet on, I believe, Monday afternoon, and we did not get it back until late this morning. So I had to change to today and was looking like we were going to have to postpone indefinitely until things did finally come back on, seemingly for the you know extended time till the next storm or the cold weather in the next 2 nights. I did not change the thumbnail for a variety of reasons, most of which involve having to do far too many other things that did not include sleeping very much, and have not included sleeping very much for several months now. So bear with me, please. Um, I am going to talk a little bit. I mean, the whole lot of updates, uh, which kind of expected right about now, and even today we've had commitments from several players. Getting a little bit more clarity on coaches. There's still a little bit of uncertainty there as far as who will be doing what and whether or not we are going to hire additional coaches. Quick rundown, Jeff Castile is confirmed. He's not officially coaching. He will be coaching Bandits, which may or may not be essentially the same as the Bandit position has been the last few years. One of the things that won't be clear for some time is just what Zach Alley is going to use as his base defense. He will adjust a lot, but what will he be adjusting from? Uh, but one of the possibilities would have the Bandit being what we've seen the last few years. And yeah, hey, if you've watched the channel at all, you know I am one of Jeff Castile's biggest fans. It will be interesting to see what he does as a position coach, since I'm only familiar with him as a defensive coordinator. Uh, and his son, Jeff Castile, will be a defensive analyst. Dusty Rutledge as chief of staff. I guess he's a regular with Rodriguez. Rhett Rodriguez has been confirmed as the quarterback coach. Talk of Travis Trickett joining the staff. I'm not sure where that stands at this point. It wasn't clear what he would be doing, and now he is not going to be quarterback coach. So if he's coming in, is he a passing game coordinator, or is he offensive coordinator, or is he not actually coming? I did not see any update on that, but I have not had internet access for several days, so I couldn't get everything caught up. Um, so as far as coaches are concerned, I think we have all of the position coaches set. They haven't all been officially announced, but I think they've all been hired. We may still hire more coaches. And I didn't mention Noel Devine will be an offensive analyst. Um, I mean, that is one of many, 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 many questions about the staff. Of course, I mean, we've got, yeah, Castile's son as well as Rodriguez's son. Rodriguez's son has a position of a lot more um, responsibility. And I really don't think anything about most of these coaching hires because don't know. We can read their history, what they've done to date, and where they've been. When I see these guys in a press conference, I'll have a better idea of what I think about them, which may just be more about, whether I like them or not. It's not always easy to tell. Uh, so basically, if they can give a really good presentation and explanation that shows how well they understand the situation and the game and the players, okay. Yeah. If more like a previous offensive coordinator who was here for a very short time a few years ago, if he just says you just do it, I'm not impressed. Yeah. On the other hand, it is possible to do a very good press conference and not necessarily be able to get what you need out of the players. Describing things and getting them across to the players are two different things. There are a lot of young coaches, mostly without P4 experience. That does not mean they won't do well. Zach Alley is a splash hire who should do well. But this will be his first time as the only, coordinator, defensive coordinator at this level of football. So, he seems to have good ideas. How well they'll work this year, we still don't know. He's an aggressive, his mindset is aggressive. So he doesn't have to, because I think, one of the things with Jordan Leslie, I think he recognized that the defense needed to be aggressive, but I think his mindset is very step-by-step precision. So rationally, he knows it has to be aggressive. He is not by nature aggressive, but sort of a very steady, work at it individual. And I think that kind of got in the way when he went from being a position coach to a defensive coordinator. But aggressiveness is Alley's base psychology. So, we haven't really had that since Castile. And Castile could only be aggressive if he had experienced players, which, with the number of guys being transferred from offense each year, wasn't always the case. But I've said before, I'm really, the thought of what Castile may be able to teach Alley. And, we have the young coaches, including Rhett Rodriguez, but we do have, of course, Rich Rodriguez, Bicknell, Castile. Those are the three older coaches that I can think of. So We have old guys to teach and keep the young guys focused, and we have young guys to maybe be better at producing energy. Um, I think it will be interesting, but just as with the players, I mean, coaches have to gel. So how good are they individually? How well will they gel? It's going to be something to see. Um, oh, what? Before I forget, the super chat should be available. I don't expect so many comments that you have to do a super chat just to get noticed. But if you decide to do a super chat, I would sincerely appreciate it. And YouTube appreciates it because they get 30% of everything that you send as a super thanks, super chat, whatever. Um, but hey, 70% of something is better than 100% of nothing, and I am by no means the first person to say that. Um, Realistic expectations of this coming season, it's still confusing. We have a lot more to do in the portal, mostly now offensive line. With the players who've committed today, we have a good core most positions. We don't have a lot of guys with established P4 playing time. A lot of the guys coming in, they grade out as, positional, situational and backup players. We don't have a lot of guys that you can say, hey, they're going to come right in and compete for a starting spot, or they're going to come in and claim a starting spot. Unless they, of course, take a step up. A lot of them only have 1 year left, and it is hard to come in and be your best in that year. Beanie Bishop did it. Most take 2 years, or late the first year, that sort of thing. So now, having said that, without the limit on coaches, we no longer have a limit of 10 coaches. So we've hired a lot more coaches, more specialized. I think we have 3 different guys who are essentially working with some type of linebacker, or hybrids. So it's like every position you can get is getting a coach, which also, it means more specialized attention for those players, but it also does mean more to coordinate so that it all comes together as a team. But a lot really is either the current offensive players on the roster have to play extremely well almost every down with very few substitutions, or we have to get several more ready to go offensive linemen. They have seemingly increased focus on that, or let us say more media knowledge of visitors. There are 2 or 3 that they are focusing on at the moment. We probably need 3 or 4 or 5 really good, ready to, if not start, at least be a strong backup, because we lost so much on the offensive line. And I have to suspect that Rodriguez was convinced Trickett would follow him. Trickett may have been giving signs otherwise, because his reasons for not coming aren't something that changed in the last few months. I think his reasons for not coming I don't think he really ever thought he would come. But I think Rodriguez still believed it and thought that naming him line coach would bring in the players. And I don't really think he had a backup plan. So waiting delayed things. And we are just now getting things going better on the offensive line portal searches. Again, that's a guess, but yeah, it kind of tracks with what I can see of what's going on. Oh my goodness. Um, I do thank you very much, Larry and Mountaineer Athletes. Um, and okay, I think if Rodriguez wins no games, but the offense is flashy, a lot of fans will stay excited because it's Rodriguez and their image of him is based on the last 2.5 years he was here. And that's, you know, I mean, you're all, you know, people are saying, some people are saying, hey, you know, the coaching hires other than Ali have not been overwhelming. They may be good, but they're not, you know, flashy or star coaches. And the players signed in the portal so far, some of them may end up being very good, but it is not at this point a really impressive portal class, particularly relative to what we need. But you have fans out there who are still saying, don't worry, Rodriguez knows what he's doing. He spots talent, he develops talent, and they just have this assumption that no matter what is happening, Rodriguez will walk on water and fix it. And I think, you know, if he wins no games, there will be fans who still expect his second year to be a national championship. Of course, it's likely to be somewhere in between. 8 games would make a lot of people happy. Of course, how we win them always makes a difference. Bill Stewart won 9 games, 3 seasons in a row, but a lot of them were, you know, having to scrape it together, you know, grind it out kind of games. And fans who were used to seeing Pat White run for 50, 60-yard touchdowns did not like that. So, but yeah, I mean, eight good wins keeps the excitement going, brings a few more fans over. And I mean, you know, before so many players left, I would have said that 8-10 wins was very reasonable for this year. But losing so many key players hurts. Getting Onwuka back helps, but Trey Lathan has, you know, signed with Kansas or committed to Kansas. You know, I mean, several of the line have, you know, followed Matt Moore to Virginia Tech. So, you know, we have things that have to fall into place to win 8 games. And of course, it's going to depend on how good the other teams are next year as well. But now I do want to catch up here. We're kind of in between comments and questions on with players that I had not, you know, mentioned in before the internet went down. Tight end from Iowa, Johnny Pascuzzi, has signed. He's got 1 year left. He's a run blocker. Caught 1 pass in all his time at Iowa. And I mean, you know, he's really not even a pass blocker. He is a run blocker. An H-back probably more than a tight end in this system. And we don't really have that on the roster. The current tight ends I think Samarco can block well. He could do it better receiver than Pascuzzi. Um, but also, come on, he's going into his second year. Jen Ross was brought in to be more of a pass catching tight end who can block reasonably well, but needed to develop. He was not really expected to be a big factor last year and wasn't. Um, Whether he will stay or not after spring practice in this system, I don't know. Um, whether he can actually move to wide receiver, I don't know. We could use somebody large at wide receiver. Um, and let's see. I've got the kicker from Tulane, Ethan Head. Have signed two safeties in the last few days. Jordan Walker out of UT Chattanooga. Derek Carter coming from Jacksonville State. And now he's a corner, but also Fred Perry, safety from Jacksonville State. So we've added three more defensive backs. Should have the defensive backs fairly full. We might take one more. The key there probably is going to be does Dwayne Galloway develop as a good corner his first year? I don't know what you have to have the body to do it. Does he? Doesn't he? At this point, I don't know. Will he by fall? I don't know. But if he steps up, or if Jacoby Spells finally puts it together in his last year, that could make the defensive backfield excellent. Um, yeah, I mean, we've had the potential for excellence several years, but turning potential into reality has been a bit of an issue. Okay, I think that catches up on the additions. We have signed now one yeah, so we've got Eric Flowers just mentioned Robbie Martin, who entered the portal just a few days ago. He is a possibility. Almost had him at West Virginia, coming out of high school. There is an offensive lineman from Princeton, and I know Princeton is not a top football school. They had a good year. He seems to be a high quality lineman who could have gone other places, went to Princeton for the education. He, gets 1 year that is sort of dedicated to football now that he, finished with the education part for now. And, there's some serious interest there. Oh gosh, there's Wyatt Minor, who came out of West Virginia. I'm not sure where he played this year, but strong interest, I guess, on both sides there. And those guys are trying to have, workout visits. And they're quite we could have 100 offensive linemen visiting today and not know it. We don't. I mean, we don't have that many, but we don't know a lot necessarily, unless somebody announces on their social media that they are visiting. The school does not put that information out. So we know some things. We don't know how much we don't know, but definitely a lot more focus at this point on offensive line, or at least public focus. So I do expect we will sign, or get commitments from 2, maybe 3 within the next week. Not all of whom will necessarily be ready to start school and may not be here until summer. So that will be a factor as well. Uh, yeah, at last check, the GPA didn't especially need help. That has, been a strong point, um, but it doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. Uh, we'd have to see, whether or not it affects how he fits in, and that's kind of on him and on the other players, um, and not something. Well, of course, you can't predict that with any incoming player for that matter. But yeah, we've signed one linebacker that I can think of. Probably need, at least one more. Um, Onwuka and Fisher are likely the Bandits could probably use somebody else of that type. There will be one other hybrid player, more than likely, in Alley's base defense. Exactly, you know, the Bandit is a cross between a linebacker and a lineman. The other hybrid is usually more like hybrid between linebacker and corner, linebacker and safety, safety and corner. And usually I think we will end up having guys who are all of those. I mean, Zay Jennings would be one. Chris Filippo coming in, possibly. But we may need, another hybrid type. We have a couple of really good young linebackers ready, maybe not. Curtis Jones and Ricky Williams hopefully will play a factor. On the defensive line, we have talent. We maybe don't have enough depth, enough experience. Vesterinen coming back really helps with the experience factor. But, we might need somebody there. I think they've got a defensive lineman visiting today. I mean, most of the visitors, I don't research their background. Because, for one thing, if I was going to research every visitor, a lot of time involved. So I generally wait until they've committed. And right now, even that is sort of superficial because there's so much just to wait and see how it shakes out. Oh, shoot. Defensive line. Interesting. On the offensive line. Offensive line, that's what I forgot. We actually have 3 or 4 preferred walk-ons from last year who potentially good players. And we have one, Kovaleski at linebacker, is a preferred walk-on. When I looked at his high school tape last year, I loved how he tackled. He was a classic, hit you straight on, wrap and drive tackler. You do not see that much anymore. I mean, partly it's because some of the rule changes, but you just do not see crisp, clean, accurate follow-through tackling. I really hope he will stick around and get playing time. I don't know if he was on special teams this year or not, but I just really liked his film. And some of those offensive lineman walk-ons are the type who might stay, but are probably still a year away. Now, of course, with the Rodriguez system, the weight and muscle are not emphasized as much as Brown had begun emphasizing them. It was sort of strength, weight, speed in that order. And with Rodriguez, I think speed might be first. Um, have enough, strength and weight to do the job, but speed to really, move and, push the zone and try to create a crease. So these guys might be able to play this year, but probably still a year away. Now, we also, still relating to the question of how will we do this year? How's it going to shake out? Switching to the 105 roster limit, so we have 15 fewer total players, but potentially all on some type of scholarship, whether that is a traditional scholarship through the school or a scholarship based on NIL money. There was talk of being able to give players half scholarships, so you could give out more half scholarships to cover guys. So much is changing, and schools and coaches and players are having to figure it out. So how many of these current walk-ons will be around as scholarship or NIL scholarship players within that 105 limit? We still don't know. A number of them are still on the 2025 official roster, which oddly to me includes 3 or 4 quarterbacks, and I really do not know why they hang around. These are guys who could be playing someplace else and are not going to play here. If we get down to our third string, scholarship quarterback, usually they will still start over your top walk-on. So, and I don't know how many the coaches will want to keep around because we have fewer spots. Let's see. Yeah. Well, it's one of the offensive line. The 3 places where we still have the most issues are offensive line, and offensive line. We have no number 2 center. We have no number 2 center. I think Nick Cray would probably slide over and play it if Livingston was hurt, but we do not have another center on the roster. That is a critical need. It would be a need even if Altuner had stayed. But having nobody else who can play, who is primarily a center rather than sliding somebody over, because if you slide Cray over, you have to put his backup in, and you're dropping a notch at 2 positions instead of 1, and that can kill you. That was actually, if you look at Bill Stewart's second and third year, his first year he had an experienced line that didn't know anything except zone blocking. But his second 2 years, he was having to teach very young, inexperienced players. And as soon as he would get them up to speed, somebody'd get injured, and 2 or 3 guys would have to shift position, and it got messy again. And people were blaming the offensive line coach, but it was bad recruiting was what it was in the previous years. You have to recruit so that you do not get those kind of gaps in experience and age. But second to offensive line, right now, we're not bad anyplace else. Could probably use another linebacker, could probably use another wide receiver. We got Cam Vaughn from Jacksonville State, and last year was a big breakout year for him. He had over 40 catches, which is a lot in a Rodriguez offense, and he got a lot of yards per catch. How will that translate this year at this level? Will he need a year to reach that same relative level? Don't know. And he's not a big wide receiver. I mean, I'd still like to see a 6'3", 6'4" receiver. Don't have to have one. Again, especially, I've said before that in a Rodriguez offense, you are not likely to have a great receiver. So you're looking to have 3 good ones. So you can spread the ball around, because spreading the ball around downfield and across the field is critical to making this offense work consistently. If you get too focused on one receiver, or your passes are limited to one part of the field, defensives will just kind of play across the line horizontally and stop the offense. Because the zone blocking system is pretty much, you have to get somebody to misread things or to not maintain gap integrity, and that opens something up. If everybody, maintains their, assignment, this offense can be stopped. And it does kind of depend more on big runs than on, 3-5 yard runs consistently. It's yeah, I mean, that's the team wasn't in great shape when he took over the first time. But now, I mean, his next several seasons were only fair. I mean, yeah, I think he had, 7 or 8 wins sort of thing, but then consistently lost in bowl games. So there were these, great games, but it wasn't until we had the, White, Slayton, Schmidt, Renaud combo that literally from that point, when those guys had to come, all in the Louisville game, the average score per game went up 10 points. That combination made the difference. Up until that game, the team was pretty much on track to do the same things they had before. So, I mean, it is a question of, how much can you do unless you have just the right combination. And I'm still curious how Big 12 defenses, which are very different from, what things were 17 years ago, they are faster, they are more designed to stop an offense similar to this. Other teams don't run the same spread, but they run spreads. So this is not as new as it was then. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. But yeah, the whole thing with the portal and, just opening it up so you can, just pay players straight. You're not even having to go really through, any other organization at this point. It changes how quickly you can change a team, but not necessarily how well. You still have to do this well. And that's what remains to be seen. Of course, I mean, the other side of that is, a lot more players leave of their own accord because they don't have to sit out a year to do so. Yeah, so it's not just that Rodriguez is changing the team faster. The team is changing itself faster. And I cannot point to any player who has left and point to their essentially their replacement and tell you for certain the replacement is better. Not one. There are some that might be, but I can't say. I mean, overall, I think unless the guys coming in play better this year than they have, or at the very least, play as well at the P4 level as they have at the lower levels, uh, you know, most of these guys coming in are not as good. We lost two linebackers. We've brought in one. The one we brought in looks to be a very good linebacker. We might or might not still bring in some guys from Oklahoma. But right now we are not clearly winning the portal battle. And I would say we may be losing it. Now, system fit. If these guys fit the offensive and defensive systems well, possibly better than the other guys would have, that can make a difference. But Rodriguez is an above average coach. He is not a magician. So we will have to see what happens with what he brings in. Um, ego that I'm always, happy to hear those things. Um, yeah, that was, hadn't seen your comment yet, but yeah, that is the thing. Since Brown had really focused on the strength and size of the offensive line and defensive, some of those guys may not have fit well in the Rodriguez system, and may not have wanted to. I mean, it's a system that can win games, but you learn how to zone block, and the other thing you learn is how to zone block. You and that may or may not hurt you if you want to move to the next level. Now, a number of Rodriguez linemen went to the next level. But if you want to learn gap blocking as well as zone blocking, and you just want to learn as many different techniques as you can, the Rodriguez system is not for you as an offensive lineman. I mean, that was one of the big problems in Stewart's first year, is that the offensive linemen were highly talented, very experienced, but they did not know well multiple blocking techniques. And Stewart admitted, partway through the season, that they tried to change things too quickly at the start. Would have been better off to keep more of the old system available and gradually change over. But it did hurt. There was always just that half-second difference in blocking, decision making. You end up being a half step late getting to a block, and what could have been a long gain becomes a loss. But that was then. This is now. And of course, if Rodriguez is here for many seasons, then if the guys only learn zone blocking and it works, that's what counts for this time, this team, during, so. But I do think that a number of the linemen, I think some left because they wanted to follow Matt Moore, others maybe because they wanted to, be in a more varied system, and some because Rodriguez probably said they weren't going to fit. Um, let us see here. Okay, just double checking the time as well. As usual, I have cat medications and things like that to do. Double check. Now, of course, we do have some very talented young offensive linemen coming in. Whether or not they can be ready, I mean, you don't generally want to be playing freshman offensive linemen in any system, but yeah, tight end, we've got Jackson Akuardi coming in. But again, I don't know if he'll be ready physically, as an H-back. And the tight end is going to be more an H-back than just a tight end. Basically filling the role that Owen Schmidt kind of created. The role wasn't there in Rodriguez's offense so much until Schmidt said, hey, look at me. And though he was, in many respects, a more traditional fullback, he could play H-back, and obviously he could run the ball and he could catch the ball. Wide receiver, let's say, it may be, I don't know if it is a point of need or not. I don't expect a great receiver. We have several good ones. Brandon Raymond from last year was on the verge of earning playing time. We have a number of guys at slot. Gallagher should be, very good. This should be a breakout season for him. He has learned the position. He had, he was making some good, important catches at the end of last season, and this system should fit him particularly well. But we also we've got Jaleel Hall coming in, who is a high quality receiver, but again, young. Got Mikhail Davis and Andrew Ferris, who are walk-ons. I don't know how good they are, whether or not they'll still be around. And I guess C.J. Cole, who was primarily a special teams guy, really good type to have on your team, and he has retired. And Preston Fox did officially announce his retirement as well. So a little short there. Checking some things here in my notes. We've got Gabe Franklin coming in to coach safeties. Rod West will be coaching corners. Henry Weinrich, nickelbacks, and Sam's is what he has previously coached. Exactly what Sam in that lingo, don't know. Chuck Lilly was the assistant general manager at Oklahoma University, coming over to be the general manager. Pat Kirkland officially announced as special teams coach, and Chris Herring being kept on as assistant special teams coach. And it's not exactly nepotism, but it does look like, Rodriguez is strongly favoring guys who have either played at West Virginia or are from West Virginia. I don't know how much that will play a role in other coaching decisions or in terms of who stays on the 105 roster. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's great to have West Virginia guys at West Virginia University. Uh, I don't think he will let it cloud his judgment, but you kind of take note of how many there are, or I do. What catches my eye can be highly variable. Um, let's see. The financials, understanding is guys like McAfee and Kendrick are pumping money in, or at least promising to pump money in, at levels they did not before. Um, and at levels they never did before. And that's a positive and a negative, because it also, if they had pumped this kind of money in starting 5 years ago, 6 years ago, what would we be at now? I don't know how much difference it would have made. It would have created options. And they are doing this because they love Rodriguez. Partly, I mean, those 2.5 years, his last 2.5 years at West Virginia created great, publicity, which also means guys like Kendrick make money, possibly more than what they put into the program. But word is that the money is flowing. I mean, we've increased the, amount being spent on assistant coaches, not entirely, necessarily raising how much each coach is paid, except Zach Alley, who paid a ton more than any other assistant coach or coordinator ever at West Virginia. But with so many coaches, the total is significant. And according to Mike Casaza at 24/7, Blaine Stewart and Chad Scott are working on slightly modified versions of their previous contract. They are not under new contract, which means their pay is the same. Chad Scott is being paid this year what he was being paid as offensive coordinator last year. I don't know if that means he will be offensive coordinator, but it does mean that the amount of money being spent on the coaches is significantly higher than it was. And I mean, Rodriguez is, personality wise, he is a better fit with guys like Kendrick. They're the kind who would get together socially just because they get along, and that in itself is opening up money. But right now, money does not seem to be the problem, which also, they could be spending more money on players in NIL terms, but it doesn't seem like they are choosing to do so. Now, of course, you can pay a player a ton of money to come and not get value. But the money is evidently there in ways it has never been before. What strings are coming with the money, I don't know. I think Kendrick is the type of guy who puts strings on money, as opposed, I think Milan Puskar was more the type who did not. Uh, but yeah, there was a shift in things when Milan Puskar got sick and Kendrick kind of became, at least in the media and public terms, the known big donor. Uh, anyway, and of course, a lot of that, I mean, I don't have a great deal of evidence for things. It's my impression. Okay. Oh, hey, we've got 21 people watching. Um, we are getting close to an hour in. Um, we've had some neat questions and comments. Do we have some more? Um, 21 people out there, and we've got about 4 people who are doing the commenting. So 23. Okay. Don't know where you were that you suddenly say, "Hey, let me go watch the long-haired old gray dude." Um, but I appreciate you dropping in. And so I'm trying to think if there's anything. Well, I haven't even looked yet when spring practice starts. School's just starting, and here I am. It's like, gee, I mean, I want to see spring practice. I want to get into a stretch where we start having the press conferences and do get to know the coaches. Of course, that's something we don't know yet. Um, the whole media thing is extremely different from when Rodriguez was here before. We did not have social media. So press conferences, access to players, access to assistant coaches and position coaches, all of that is much more important than it was 17 years ago. Do not know how Rodriguez will handle that. I have, thoroughly enjoyed being able to see 2 or 3 coaches, 3 or 4 players, during the week after the games, that sort of thing. Of course, some players were more interesting than others, and some coaches, but it has given insight into the game and the team and the whole environment in ways that did not exist when I was much younger, short-haired kid wearing plaid polyester and black plastic glasses. Um, but I do want to see how the media aspect plays out, and I don't know if Rodriguez has even thought about that yet. It may be something he has to make up as he goes later. Uh, yeah, I mentioned yesterday, day before, I think that saw, hey, Travis Trickett is coming back, but what role? I have not seen absolute confirmation of it, but if the first thought was that if Trickett is coming, then Rhett Rodriguez is likely assistant quarterback coach, but Rich Rodriguez announced him now as quarterback coach. So what does that leave for Trickett? Will he be offensive coordinator? If so, I mean, he's familiar with West Virginia. He's familiar with Rodriguez, but at the same time, that means you would be paying 2 people offensive coordinator money. Um, Now, I think Chad Scott as a coach is worth the money, whether he's offensive coordinator or not. I think keeping him is going to be critical to this year's success. But do you divide it up so that Scott is coordinator for the run game, Trickett is coordinator for the passing game, and somehow you coordinate it all together with Rich Rodriguez calling the plays? I mean, that starts to get complicated. It can be done. A lot depends on how well the coaches work together, and then but um, I mean, as a coach, I have no opinion on Trickett really, on Travis Trickett. Um, I wasn't paying a great deal of attention to such things when he was here before, and I haven't followed his career since. I don't know if there's a need to bring him in. Um, but now, I mean, it may be that hey, Rhett Rodriguez is good enough to be a quarterbacks coach, but not necessarily do that and help coordinate the passing game. Maybe he's better focusing just on quarterbacks. So, do you need somebody like Trickett to pull the passing game together? Yeah. I mean, there are so many changes and so much uncertainty. Um, and you know, I've, 'cause every time I say something's uncertain, I get people who take it as a negative thing. Uncertain is uncertain. It is neither positive nor negative. It is uncertain by definition. Uh, and I do not know which way each uncertainty is going to fall. Yeah, it's the Schrodinger's cat version of football, and some of you will be familiar with that. Um, although what most people don't know is the Schrodinger cat theory is a joke. It is a joke about what happens when you have too much uncertainty and yet still try to predict what will happen. Um, and I suppose that's the position we're in. Great deal of uncertainty, and we all want to predict what will happen. The Rich Rodriguez fans predict that every single uncertainty will work out well or greatly. Um, but yeah, who else is going to leave among the players? How well will these players who are coming in turn out? Um, how much culture conflict will there be between the players coming in and the players already here? Will they gel? Will the team implode if they face adversity at some point early on? I do not know. And there's not enough to predict it. I say Rodriguez is an above average coach. How good are the other coaches? Well, I think, Chad Scott, we have some idea. Blaine Stewart. Others have seemingly done well at other schools. How will it work here? It's exciting. I mean, if you like uncertainty, it is a thrill a minute. But if you do not like uncertainty, and a lot of people don't, they want set answers. Yeah, between now and the start of the season is just it's going to be wild and weird and strange. It's going to give me a lot to talk about, and hopefully a lot of exciting things to talk about that get people to, subscribe to the channel and, send me money to, for my wisdom and my humor and all of that sort of thing. My ego, feed my dreams. Uh, it, so, yeah, that's my thoughts. Especially, that's my sleep-deprived thoughts. I got to repeat that, guys, because I am way, way, way behind on sleep. I have been for months. So it's affecting. Uh, we survived the storm. We are among the few who did not lose power, but we did eventually lose internet, uh, which turned out to be some wires knocked down, like a tree that fell 2 or 3 houses down the street from us. Um, but yeah, the cats are handling it, looking out the well, it appears to be snow at this point. It's crusty ice, and we are due another inch or two on Friday, and supposed to get down into the single digits tonight. I do appreciate you asking. As many times as Reggie had gotten loose uh, over the last couple of months, I am just utterly delighted that she is here. I am not having to go out checking traps in this weather, although I can't help but worry about the assorted other cats who got into the traps, but we could not take them in and add to our crew. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've already left Jupiter, but good night. uh, hey, and I appreciate it. Have a good week, which is better than have a good day or have a good night. Hey, if we get to have an entire good week at one stretch, that will just blow me away. I've actually come to appreciate the people who just say, have a good one, and leave it up to me what one is. um, I do appreciate everybody dropping in. We are starting to lose a few people now. Um, does anybody have more questions, more comments, more insight? I do not for a moment believe that I am the only one here capable of insight, good insight, clear insight, precise and well conceived insight. That I know you guys are mostly here from my perspective, to ask questions. I need to start learning to give oracle type answers that leave it up for interpretation so I can always somehow say I was right. But, oh God. Oh, well, let's see. Lazy, depressed, which has led to overweight, diabetic, high blood pressure, low testosterone, which took 2 years to diagnose, and I was the one who finally diagnosed it. A little habit that runs in the family of beating the doctor to the diagnosis. And the low testosterone, which kind of decreased activity, probably played a role in arterial blockage, which meant a triple bypass. Not that long, well, it's actually been coming up a year and a half now, I guess. Should have been a quadruple bypass, but the doctor said one artery was too far gone to work with. So, oh well. And right now, the sleep deprivation actually is the main thing. It's just kind of wreaks havoc with everything else. And that is mostly taking care of the cats, primarily these days Raucous, who we've actually scheduled him to be euthanized twice. And he finds a way to come back, and we adjust his treatment. And I can't say he's doing well, but he's doing. And I don't know if he will beat this or not. We're not even sure what it is we're fighting, whether it's one thing, two, or three. But we continue, we persevere. Um, just reading a Dick Francis novel in which one of the characters said um, something to the effect of, "You can't beat the pain, so just go on with the party." I'm not that much of a party kind of guy, but in my own way, I go on with, well, this channel, things I enjoy. Okay, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on Raucous at the moment. Uh, anyway, that is my story. That's a little bit of the cat story. Um, do we have more football questions? We are kind of dribbling down on the numbers here. We're running past an hour, and some of those health problems do include taking diuretics, which means too long between trips to the bathroom is a bit of an issue. And we are moving towards that point. But if we have some good questions, good comments, I am always up for conversation, uh, whether it is just me talking. I am capable of listening. It does not come easily to me at times, but I am capable of listening. Let's see, what are we? Yeah. So are you full level semi-trucking kind of guy? I was thinking way back, would have been 1975, I believe. Larry Gross appeared at our high school, and he was doing some work uh, for an organization sending guys around to high schools before he took over Mountain Stage and retired. And he performed a trucking song that he had written, and I don't think he ever recorded and released it. I could not find it. Called Night Truckin'. I actually did, at one time in my life, looked into going to truck driving school, but I had just moved from West Virginia to Ohio and still had a West Virginia license. And as soon as the guy found that out, he said, "Nope, I can't even talk to you." Probably would not have worked out. Long haul driving does run in the family, but just driving. We have this thing about driving overnight, and yeah, more like old style trucking where you did not do your 8 hours and sleep. But, anyway, that looks like we're kind of at the end of it. Oh, well, always remember Larry Gross said, yeah, the reason he wrote a truck driving song was because he pays a lot of attention to trucks because he drove a Volkswagen. And that made a great deal of sense to me. If you can ever find it, though, I do believe the title was Night Truckin'. I really like the song. I did do a covert recording, but I do not know where that particular tape has gotten off to. You got Raucous shaking the camera. All right, guys. I appreciate you being here. Pete, appreciate the questions about football, the cats, me. I am willing to talk about myself. I've got a channel where I do that sort of thing, as a matter of fact, called Thoughts and Mutters, if you ever want to check that out. I've also got Hyperthyroid Cats, and one called Gen 4's Teak Talking, where I talk about antiques and collectibles. So you can find me all over the place. I do spend most of my time on this channel. I really, really need to work on the other ones, but they are out there. If you ever want to find out why I drove from West Virginia to New Jersey overnight in a car that was spewing oil, uh, only to learn that my father had done it many decades before me for the same reason and with pretty much the same result. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea. I have not even thought about schedules. Um, so, we will all have to wait on that. If I do see something about it, I will try to remember to take care of it. And I did not say it, and I should, but thanks. I mean, I know a train can move a lot more than a truck, but not as precisely. And the guys, truck driving is a specialized ability. Uh, it takes certain type of skill, certain type of mentality, and the world is better off that I did not get into that. I am a good driver, but no, the precision for driving a semi is the sort of thing that I would have done well most of the time, but you don't get away with doing it most of the time when you're driving something that big. Uh, yeah, I wish you were driving for our local grocery store because they had distribution problems and were out of the stuff I wanted tonight. But yeah, thanks for moving things one place to another because we need them. Okay, guys, I am going to call it a night as I do have things that I really, really need to do. Once again, I do want to say thanks to the folks for the super chat, super thanks, that sort of thing. Um, you know, basically, I need to figure out how to make about $1,500 a month. um, this channel is not going to do all of it, but it is finally doing some of it. So thanks to everybody who has subscribed. And we will keep doing this. Next video will be when there's more to talk about. Some of that should be offensive linemen, and hopefully will be within the next 5 days. We can hope. And when there is uncertainty, the most we can do is hope. So I am hoping for a good season. All right. Thanks for coming in. I will talk to you later, and so long.